Hey everybody, so a long-awaited pricing video for all you YouTubers out there. Let me tell you something, this is not easy. There's a lot to go over. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible because it's just complicated. Let me just get started right away with it. What I usually do, I go out and I buy these invoices. First of all, I think we'll start with the invoices. So it's very important if you're dealing with a client to get their name. Normally with me, I've already got their email or text or phone number. And the only thing I put down here is the phone number. Believe it or not, I can always cross-reference on the computer. So I use a combination of technology and ancient stuff that I learned many years ago before computers. And I think that using both is a really good idea for everybody because I'll tell you, I'm a mid-size upholstery shop, and I've worked in large upholstery shops. I've worked in I was a small upholsterer. I've worked in 4 or 5-man shops, and I could tell you that one of the biggest problems in any type of shop, I don't care what type of shop it is, upholstery or whatever, is confusion about a job, a miscommunication about a job. You know, a skirt doesn't get put on in the case of an upholsterer, or gets taken off and not put back on. I mean, there's all kinds of variables. And in another video, I'll show you how I keep all the balls in the air at once and not make any mistakes. I've worked in shops where they've actually lost furniture. Well, they don't know where a piece of furniture is. That never happens with me. But that's another video. This one's about pricing, and this one's about how to conduct a good invoice, a simple invoice. You don't want too complicated for your customers. Patrick's going to throw up an invoice that we use on the computer when necessary. I hardly ever use it. It's a computer-generated invoice. Sometimes people request it, usually on a professional level, like a designer or something would want that. That's fine. But I'm not exactly great speedy on the computer, so I don't like actually using it, but I can do it if I have to. But most of my regular walk-in clients or clients that I go out to see, I take my little invoice here. So the only thing you need is really important before I get to the pricing. Obviously, make sure you put the date down. Make sure you have an invoice number. That's always helpful, although sometimes I don't even use that. Your company name, your customer's name, address, if necessary, because some people walk in, they don't want to give you their address. That's fine. But the phone number is so essential. That's the most important thing. I'll tell you today, the advantage that we have today that we did before was the texting. I have people texting me photographs. It saves me so much time with somebody. I always say, can you text me a photograph? If they can't, they can email me a photograph of the piece of furniture so I can get to the estimating, which we'll get to in a minute. So I'm talking fast because there's a lot to cover. So down here, this is where I put how many items I have. In this case, I just started an invoice. I picked it up. I have 2 cushions ready to go, right? And then I figure out the labor cost, which I'll get to over here in a minute. But this is my basic, so basic. Keep it simple, you guys. So 2 cushions depends on, is it welted? Is it not welted? How big they are? All that's variables. And you know, I think the easiest way to talk about pricing is your time. You know, so if you look at countrywide, I would say the average shop time would be $50 an hour, although in my area it would be a little bit more, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm going to let's start with the pretense of $50 an hour for now, okay? But so we have 2 cushions. I know a cushion is going to take me, if it's a box cushion, if it's a chair size, it's going to take me an hour and a half. So that's what, 50. That's $75 each. Cushion for labor. That doesn't include foam or anything like that. Foam, usually, whatever you're buying for foam, you usually want to double it just to cover your cost of shipping and all that. So that's what I do. So this could look like 2 cushions, $75 each, $150 labor, and then down here, if they want foam and Dacron, it's probably another $75 each. So, you know, that's like a $300 work order. So let's just put that aside. So that's your basic invoice. Pat's going to throw up, if you guys want to see a professionally done invoice, Patrick's going to throw that up on the computer for you to look at. So I just wanted to get started on this. So this is basically, I've worked out like an invoice up here. Your name, your company name, date, the terms. Some people, you'll always want to be COD or 50% deposit and then COD. So that's interesting, but that depends on you. I don't use credit cards. I want to try to simplify things. Most people are willing to give personal checks. I would definitely advise you guys to do that. I know that some of you are going, wow, He's pretty antiquated, but to me, it's just streamlined. I'm looking to spend as much time on the bench, because that's where we make our money, on the bench, not sitting on a computer figuring out invoices and figuring out, making them all neat and everything else like that. If you have a partner that's willing to do that, that's great. But if you're working alone, especially, you want to be on the bench as much as possible. So, but it's important to get the information, all the correct information. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you pricing and the correct information on each piece of furniture that I've got listed up here. Some basic stuff, okay? First of all, $50 an hour. You start with that premise, $50 an hour. Now, let me just talk a little bit about that number. In the Northeast here, the metropolitan Boston, metropolitan New York is about $80 in Boston. In New York, I think you're closer to 100, maybe even 120. So, like New York City. Then when you expand from a city, I think I mentioned this a little bit on some other videos, your price goes down, you guys. I mean, if the cost of living is going down, your price per hour is going down too. And people aren't going to expect to pay city prices if they're 30 miles away from the city. So keep that in mind. So the Northeast has one structure. I think the South has a whole different structure, even around metropolitan areas. Some metropolitan areas down there, I'm sure you could command $50, $60, maybe $70. But then now remember, that's an average. So when you go out to the rural areas, I think you're reducing 20% off that 50 at least, right? But you also have to run your own price checking in the community that you're in. If you have a friendly upholsterer that's willing to talk to you, a lot of them won't about pricing anyhow. Just do your own price check. Have somebody call and suggest that they have a piece of furniture they want done. Just pick their brains just to see where they're at, what your hourly rate is in your area. So we're going to go with the $50. Okay. Now the other thing is, how long does it take you to do something? So if you're watching this video, you've seen my other YouTube videos, you might be ready to start moving on professionally, and you're wondering, how long things take. So if you're 5 or 10 years into a career, you're going to be at everybody's got a different pace too, by the way, and everybody's got, so I don't know, but usually after about 12 to 15 years, you get into a really good pace where the hours start to come down per piece. That's important, right? For instance, the wing chair. Wing chair in the Boston area, we're getting $1,000, let's say, right? That's labor. Okay, so the average wing chair, for somebody that's really good, A to Z, I'm talking about stripping it down, one person. If you have more than one person, you have to take their time into account what you're paying them too. So if somebody's stripping furniture, you're paying them, you have to take that into account. But let's just say we're going on the fact that there's one person doing this, okay? One person. That total hours. If you have 2 people, it's a total hours of 2 people, 3 people, and so on. So $1,000 labor, straight labor. Okay, so that means that you need to, in the Boston area, you need 20 hours of work on that. Okay? Now we are talking reupholstery too, re-up, okay? Re-up. We're not talking about restoration, taking it down to the frame and then building it up. You add 50% for that, okay? So this is, I'm just going to start with the reupholstery, and so we're going to say add 50% if it's to the frame, if you have to strip it all down, okay? So let's just go with the reupholstery, and you guys seen my videos, you know what a reupholstery is. You're taking all the old fabric, you're sprucing it up with some half-layer cotton here and there. You're doing minor repairs if necessary, and you're upholstering it. You're not going down to the frame. You start going down to the frame on pieces, you add a lot of labor. Okay, so let's not go there yet, okay? So the wing chair, 20 hours, that's 50, right? 50 times 20 is $1,000, right? There you go. That's pretty much the basic formula for a wing chair. Club chairs are a little bit less. I usually, wing chair, for a one-seater, the wing chairs usually price out more than any other chair because they have the extra wing. So you actually, on a wing chair, so that's where the 20 hours comes, maybe the extra 2 hours comes with the 4 pieces on the wing chair, which is the inside wings and the outside wings. Okay, I'm not going to get into yardages here, but I am going to get to the fabric as another equation, right? This is just the labor. We haven't got to the fabric yet. I'm not going to talk about yardages, but we'll get to the fabric in a minute. I just want to go over all the prices for the club chair. Usually a little bit less, like $9.50. So you're probably looking at 18 to 19 hours. 18, 19. Side chair is like an upholstered back, upholstered seat, maybe some upholstered arms, a small side chair. We're talking maybe $5.25, 50 times 10. Ideally 11 hours, let's say, for that. As we go down, a box seat for a dining room chair is just the seat. It's just what it sounds like. It's box. It looks like a cushion, has a piping or anything like that. That usually is $125 because that's going to take me close to 2 hours, maybe each. 2 hours. So there's some wiggle room in these prices too from a sales position, and I'll get to that too. So that adds, because I find that most people are so sticker shock because they're so used to these, box stores, which drive me crazy because they're getting such bad quality furniture. Another thing too is if you showcase yourself as a professional and you have a resume, if you have a book with all your past projects and you take it with you to sell, that's great. If you're just starting out, that's probably not a bad idea to build confidence in the client and to make them understand these prices that you're worth it. But these box stores have set prices. When they're selling an IKEA $5.99 sofa, so that's what you're competing. I haven't even gotten to the sofa prices yet. That's what you're competing with. Okay, but you have to tell them, and I tell my clients, if they've got an old piece of furniture, that's basically what all we do. We're getting into mid quality furniture too now. But if you have a good quality furniture that's going to last you generations, you go to IKEA, it's going to last 2 or 3 years. You're going to buy another IKEA. I've had couples, they're on their 4th sofa from IKEA. Well, that's $2,000 right there within 10 years. So you really need to start, you need to talk, you need to educate yourself about box stores and about why they're different than you as the professional upholsterer, because you really want to, you guys are worth it. If you've been watching the videos, we've had people say that they're actually learned from the YouTube videos, which is incredible. But the online classes at Broadway Upholstery School too are great to learn. You actually get there, see how long it takes somebody that's just starting out. You would be unbelievably surprised at how long it's taking. But not to say anything bad about that person, it's just that everybody starts out slow, right? But as the more you do, the faster you become. And that's where you can start earning money and making and building a career for yourself. Okay, so I'm really excited about you guys doing it. I'm very generous with what I'm showing you. This is for real. This is real stuff here. So let's go to the slip seat. Okay, slip seat. Usually I get $90. Okay, people say, why $90 to reupholster a slip seat? Well, when you're talking about, sometimes you have to make up. Okay, so that seems a little steep, right? But if you come into a project, a slip seat that needs to be stripped, some of these slip seats are really hard to strip down. Sometimes they take 15, 20 minutes each, or even a half hour each to take off the cover. So when you think about that, and then another, hour or so the $90 labor still sounds a little steep. So sometimes what I do is I put a range. It's okay to put a range. You could say, well, normally we get $90, but you could say if you get $75 for slip seat and it doesn't need anything, that's still not a bad price in the Boston area. And sometimes it depends on how many they have. If they have 12, I'll oftentimes go down the price, okay, and without even being asked. I do a lot of things without the customer even asking me. I just have a good sense of where I'm at with the price. So I'm always offering these little tidbits in here, and I'll mention something else down here too in a minute. So the slip seat, so you're talking about an hour, right? And the love seat a little bit more, maybe if they're high, 1.5. So a love seat, now 2-seaters, we'll call that a 2-seater too, some people call them, okay? Some people price out by the seat, but I think that's too complicated. So love seats, usually I get between 1,100 and 1,300 labor. Of course, that reflects 22 to 25 hours, right? And then the sofa, I usually try to get 16 in the Boston area. This is what we're getting, about $1,650. Now that's medium, by the way. I know some upholsterers that are getting $2,200, believe it or not. And I know some upholsterers that are getting less, but they're not in the metropolitan area. Usually they're outside. So it's really that delicate, right? So outside we have if you're not familiar with where I live, we have 128 or 95, and then we have 495. They're like circular roads around Boston. So outside of 495, this price can be almost in half. And you're talking about probably a distance of about 30, 40 miles. So that's really interesting. But the cost of living is it's not a lot out there too. It really does reflect the cost of living, I think. Okay. So now we haven't even gotten into the second equation, fabric. So just say a customer sometimes is already sticker shocked. Okay, they're saying $1,000 wing chair. Well, I can go out to. I said, well, wait a minute. Let's look at your wing chair to see, is it worth doing. Let's say it's a high-end wing chair. High-end wing chairs at like a design center or through a designer, you're looking at between $5,000 and $6,000 for a really high-end wing chair. Okay, and I have chairs in here that are high-end. And so if you start at that price, you have no problem selling $1,000 labor plus the fabric. You're going to come a third under. Okay, then you got your second tier of quality, which is the mid quality furniture, which is a lot out there, like a Boston Interiors or something like that. Good furniture, or Restoration Hardware, something like that. Those pieces, you can still realize half of the cost of buying new. But so when you start getting into the really less quality furniture, then you got a little bit more of a problem selling. Okay, so then you have to be careful. The second equation the second part of your equation, which is the fabric. So let's start with the wing chair. I think I'm only going to do the wing chair for the fabric, just to give you a broad explanation. So 7 yards is usually the amount of fabric that you need for a wing chair. And then so you quote them the labor. Oh, by the way, see this $1,000? I did that for you could say $975, right? So it sounds a lot better than $1,000. If you keep it under $1,000, people I think respond better to that. And then over here, the 20 hours is still the same. So 7 yards of fabric. So usually, when you're talking to a client, they're asking about labor costs first, and then fabric. So, and then I say 7 yards, and then the next question always is, well, how much is it? How much can I expect to pay for the fabric? That's a really good question. And loaded. It's a loaded question, because if you're going to be putting $1,000 into doing the labor on a wing chair, then you want to do a decent fabric. You want an upholstery weight fabric. You don't want a lightweight fabric because it's not going to last. When I'm upholstering, I usually tell people, I want it to last 30 years for you, 25, 30 years. And that means it has to be a good fabric. The workmanship can be the best, but if you put a Asian cotton on it, that's going to fall apart. It doesn't matter how good of an upholsterer you are. So you really want to start. It doesn't mean that they have to spend an exorbitant amount of money. But, I usually say, oh, well, maybe $50 on average for me, because I have a designer. I handpick designer fabric, okay? So $50 is about the average. And then, this is a time, we're in the middle of a pandemic here, or coming towards the end of it, actually, not in the middle, hopefully. And so we have a lot of times the business isn't as good as it was. So I offer little incentives. I'll say $50 a yard, we can give you 20% off that. So it'll be $40 a yard. So 40 times 7 is $280. So, you're looking at about $1,280 for a wing chair, not including tax. So you're coming at about $1,300 for a decent fabric and a very decent upholsterer, right, as you guys will be. So that's the formula there. Also on the labor cost, this is a little trickier, you guys. Labor is a little trickier, but you can take, in rare instances, I give 10% off on labor, just as an extra bonus. Then what I do, I'll say I have a small little van. I don't have a big van. I have a small van. And I say, well, where do you live? I usually ask people where they live. If they live within, let's say, a 10-mile radius, I'll offer free pickup and delivery. And that usually sells the job. You need to do this. You need to add these little bonuses, and you're building a relationship with your client too. I think they won't forget you for that, because most people know what moving costs are, right? You're not going to have IKEA. IKEA is not in the moving business. I mean, I know that there are some of those, what do they call them, Rabbit or whatever they call them, these guys you can hire, but you don't want that on fine furniture. Trust me. So you're going to get a guy that has just unloaded a cement in the back of his van, and he's coming to pick up grandmother's rock. Avoid them. Those people who have good furniture that they want to be taken care of, I'm a good person to call to do that, because I'll pad the horses, I'll pad the inside of the van and everything, make it look nice. But if they're going to hire a mover, they know. They hire a professional mover who's going to do all that boxing and everything. You're looking at like a $500 pickup and delivery one way. So you're looking at about $1,000 there. So they see the value right away. So you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to offer these incentives. And that's how I get on it. So I just want to make sure that I covered everything. And you guys can please ask questions with this video, and we can answer them in in the future. Any question and answer that we do every week live. We'd be happy to do that, because I know that you guys are going to have tons of questions. We've already done some videos on how to figure yardages, so I really don't want to get into that too much here. I just want to go over my notes to make sure that I covered everything. So these are mid prices, like I said, for the Boston area, Metro Boston area, not outside of that region. It's less. 10% off on labor if you want, 20% off on fabric. Okay, and then I think I covered everything, but then it comes to, then you start to get busy, and I just want to mention this. It's so important to know your schedule, to know your labor, to know how long it takes things. It's one thing to write a job, to pick it up, everybody's okay, and then the next question the customer always has, even in the original, the contract. How long does it take? Be very careful with this, okay? If you're busy and you're actually 15 weeks out or 20 weeks out, I could tell you, no matter how good you are, I don't think anybody's going to wait that long. So you need to, hopefully, you're going to get this busy where you need to, which customer's going to want to wait and prioritize that way. Okay, but in the future, I'm going to show you a way of organizing all this, because I get to speak for myself here at the shop, being a mid-size upholstery shop. I probably have about 30 jobs in queue, 30 to 40 jobs maybe in queue. They're not all ready to go, but they're in queue, meaning I don't have the fabric for some of them. Some people are waiting until after the summer, but they're all in queue. They're all here. They're not all here. They're out there. But the information that I have to keep, there's thousands of pieces of information, and I don't exclusively use the computer and the texting for storing that information. I have a system, and I think I want to show you that at a future date. I think you guys might be interested in that. But I think there's a lot more. I probably didn't touch on things. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But this is just a pretty basic pricing structure. And so I hope that helped you guys, and I hope to hear from you. Thanks a lot.